Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivedanta Thakur Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupada Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Vaishnav Guru Varga Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Thakur Ki Jai Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, all glory Samudavaris, Hare Krishna, all glory Samudavaris, Hare Krishna, all glory Samudavaris, Hare Krishna, all glory Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glory Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Shaya Padaya Shimti Radha Govinda Goswami Namini Namaste Prabhupati Deva Krishna Harini. Okay, so today we're continuing the discussion of the third chapter, and we'll go a bit further into the pastimes of Mahaprabhu after taking sannyas. I have the verse numbers for the divisions we discussed. So texts 1 to 40 is Mahaprabhu's attempt to reaching Vrindavan and then being diverted. Then this section here with the Advaita Acharya and Shantipur is text 41 to 205. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going to Puri is texts 206 to 219. As for these specific points here, the prasadam and the fight which ensues from it are texts 41 to 107. And the kirtan is 108 to 136. And then the conversational elements, the conversation with Sachimata is 137 then to 192. And the conversational Haridas Thakur is 193 to 197. And the remaining festivities, obviously, then, is 198 to 205. So that's just the various verse numbers. So we were discussing, yesterday we were discussing about the Avanti Brahmana and how Mahaprabhu, he was constantly repeating the verse that the Avanti Brahmana said as he was traveling around. Because, why? The real purpose of accepting sannyas is to dedicate oneself to the service of Mukunda. By serving Mukunda, one can actually be liberated from the bondage of material existence. So, by doing this, he was echoing these conclusions. And so, Mahaprabhu, he was en route to Vrindavan, and all the ecstatic symptoms became manifest, and he did not know which direction he was going, nor did he know whether it was day or night. So in this state of confusion, now Nityananda Prabhu, he is not wanting him to necessarily go. And so then Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhar Prabhu, and Mukund Prabhu, they all followed. And then hearing this, they came up with a plan to bewilder the direction for Mahaprabhu to traveling in. And so Nityananda Prabhu, he tells them that if Mahaprabhu asks you about the path to Vrindavan, show him instead the path on the bank of the Ganga. Show him this. He was telling there was a bunch of boys who Mahaprabhu was chanting nearby, and Nityananda Prabhu, he decided to divert by telling them to do like this. And then eventually Mahaprabhu, he reached them, and then he asked them, and the boys showed him again the way to the Ganga. And Mahaprabhu, being in ecstasy, followed suit. He followed their directions. And then going like this, he went along and he went into an ecstasy there. And seeing it all, he thought he was already in Vrindavan. And he was very excited. He was in a lot of ecstasy. And then, of course, Nityananda Prabhu, he went along with it. And he would say, here's the Jamuna, all of these sort of things. And then thinking the Ganga to be the Jamuna, Mahaprabhu, he begins to offer the pranams to the Jamuna, but he's offering them to the Ganga. And reciting like this, Mahaprabhu, he is offering obeisance and he is worshipping the Ganga. Then Advaita Acharya, he appears on a boat, rather well-timed, because of course the plan of Nityananda Prabhu was that instead they will go to the house of Advaita Acharya. So as Advaita Acharya appeared, Mahaprabhu, who was still in his ecstasy, believing himself to be in Vrindavan, was shocked, and he thought, how did he get here so quickly? We're in Vrindavan. It's very nice to see you here. I'm happy that you decided to make the journey as well. And then, of course, Advaita Acharya, he sort of ruined the whole thing. And then he said, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. However, it is my great fortune that you have come to the bank of the Ganga. So he sort of ruined the place, so to speak, of Nityananda Prabhu. And Mahaprabhu, he got very angry. And he thought, this is a classic move from Nityananda Prabhu. He's cheated me. He brought me to the bank of the Ganga and told me that it was the Jamuna. So then when Mahaprabhu accused Nityananda of doing this, Advaita Acharya, he sought to resolve the situation. Advaita Acharya, as you know, is a man of high moral conduct, and so he did not want to see too much distressed. So he said, whatever Nityananda Prabhu has told you is not false. You have indeed just now taken your bath in the river Jamuna. Advaita Acharya then explained that at that spot the Ganga and the Jamuna flow together. On the western side was Jamuna, and on the eastern side was the Ganga. However, because Mahaprabhu had taken it from the western side, it is to be considered that he actually did bathe in the Jamuna. And then Advaita Acharya, even though he seems to have defeated the plan, the trick of Nityananda Prabhu, he still says that actually the Lord he should change his garments because they've been made wet from bathing. And furthermore, he says you've been continuously, for 3 days in your constant ecstasy, you've been fasting. So therefore, you should come to my house. We will take prasad together, we will honor prasad, and we will break this fast because it's getting too long. And then he says that at my home, I've just cooked 1 palmful of rice. The vegetables are always very simple. There is no luxurious cooking. Which doesn't seem to make sense, because normally when people invite other people, they invite them on the pretense of, there'll be paneer, there'll be dosa, there'll be all these sort of arrangements. No one really tries to say, hey, Prabhu, please come over. I'm cooking very simple food. We'll have a few vegetables, a palmful of rice, and then we will honor prasad together. Most people don't really find that this is the most compelling of pitches. But again, this notion was done because Mahaprabhu, being especially very fresh in his sannyas, he was a little worried about taking too opulent food. Just to take simple prasadam, just to honor simple remnants of the Lord, that was his plan. And so Advaita Acharya was explaining like this. It is very sattvic, very simple. You don't need to worry. You can come over. So saying like this, Advaita Acharya, he brought Mahaprabhu into the boat, and he also brought Nityananda Prabhu. And he washed the feet of the Lord, and then they went to his house. And there's a very long description of the prasadam as it is being prepared, because it was divided into 3 equal parts. One was arranged in a metal plate for offering to Lord Krishna. There was 3 plates. One was metal and the other ones were banana leaf. And the idea was, Advaita Acharya, he was, even though his name is Advaita, which means he is non-dual, it doesn't mean he's a monist or a Mayavadi, but rather that he is not two-faced. There's no deception to him. Still, he was trying to somehow get Mahaprabhu to accept the direct cookings. And on the pretense of all of it being Krishna Prasadam, he was trying to get him to eat it. So that's why there was 3 separate divisions. One was for Krishna, on the metal. The other 2 were for Nityananda Prabhu and Mahaprabhu. And so we read here, the cooked rice was a stack of very fine grains, nicely cooked. And in the middle was yellow clarified butter from the milk of cows, which was not exactly what Advaita Prabhu was pitching when he told Mahaprabhu to come. Surrounding the stack of rice were pots made of the skins of banana trees, and in these pots were varieties of vegetables and mung dal. Among the cooked vegetables were patolas, squash, manakachu, and a salad made with pieces of ginger and various types of spinach. There was shukta, bitter melon mixed with all kinds of vegetable, defying the taste of nectar. Again, this is not as simple as Advaita Acharya had pitched it. And so then there's a further description, and he goes on for a while. A majority of these texts are taken and they're used to describe, because all around the eating places were 100 pots filled with various kinds of vegetables. And along the vegetables there was sweet rice as well. Not even dessert was being neglected. Besides the other preparations, there were chipped rice made with milk and mixed with bananas, and also white squash boiled in milk. Indeed, it is not possible to describe all the preparations that were made. So we're getting an idea that this is a very opulent feast and very opulent prasadam. In two places there were earthen pots filled with another preparation made with yogurt, sandesh, a sweetmeat made with curd, and banana. I am unable to describe it all. And it keeps on going like this, and it keeps on to describe more, and then says I'm unable to describe it. So I could read it for a while, but it would take the whole 45 minutes to read the wonderful description of all the prasadam. And so there it was. So it is a system after offering food to perform Bhoga Arti. Advaita Prabhu asked the two brothers, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, to come see the Arti. The two lords and all others present went to see the Arti ceremony. So the offering was made, and then Krishna was made to lie down to rest. Then afterwards, Advaita Acharya, he invites Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu into the room. And when they went to accept the prasadam, they both called their people who had traveled with them, Mukunda and Haridas, to take prasad. Mukunda, he said, I have some other thing on. I can't take prasadam now, so I will go, and later I will honor prasad. And Haridas Thakur said, however, that I am the most sinful and lowest among men. Later I shall eat one palmful of prasadam while waiting outside. And this is again interesting because Haridas Thakur, far from being the most sinful and lowest among men, he is the great Namacharya. We know that the holy name is so purifying. We constantly are hearing, and never enough hearing, the glories of the holy name. So how gloriful then must be the person who is the Acharya of the holy name. It's not that he was low, and of course we all know this. But Haridas Thakur, he still decides that he will abide by, of course, the rule that even though Hindus and Muslims, Prabhupada says in the purport, even though they were coexisting rather nicely, still there was some idea that as a Muslim person, he should not eat with them. And even though Haridas Thakur was more than qualified to eat with anyone, he was a great devotee, equal to all the other great Vaishnavas in history, he still, Prabhupada says, out of his humility, decided to go along with the distinctions that were made. He did not say, well, actually, I'm a great devotee, I am entitled to this. And there's two interesting points from that. The first one is, of course, we know that to do such things is incorrect. If one has the essence, if one is truly spiritually progressed, then one should be recognized so, not caring for material considerations. And it is therefore an injustice, or it is a bad thing to discriminate, in a sense, among the bodily conception. However, I believe it was Bhakti Tirtha Swami who once complained about some racism he was encountering in the ashram to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada, he said, it is wrong that they would discriminate with you on the bodily platform. But on the other hand, if you are taking it to heart so much, then you too are also on the bodily platform. It is not that in order to circumvent such injustices, people should reduce themselves then to the bodily platform. To become too absorbed into it is just as much an absorption on the bodily platform of life. To become absorbed in these sort of contentions is not necessarily productive, because it is still, again, a fixation upon one's material conditioning. If one feels, oh, this is bad towards me because of this and this and this and this material condition, they meditate. Instead of meditating on the fact that they are the spirit soul, they're meditating that, oh, I'm not technically this, I'm not technically that, but there's still that strong identification with it. Because otherwise it wouldn't be so disturbing so as to be a constant meditation. yes, it should be something to be circumvented, but if it's the only thought that passes through one's head, that because of this issue with me, with who I am, because of this, the insult is felt because they identify with what is being insulted. Even though the insult is bad and the insult is coming from a not so spiritual platform, if one becomes truly distressed, the reason why is because they feel that insult was directed at them. And if they feel it was directed at them, then they feel that they are truly that material or gross or subtle factor which was being criticized. Or which was being attacked. So it's an issue of both sides losing, if it's taken too much. So in this, Haridas Thakur, he was very nicely embodying that even though this wasn't the proper attitude by people who would criticize, he still thought, nevertheless, I'm not identifying with such designations. I can easily, humbly accept this position. But the further point that's made is, by doing this, Haridas Thakur wouldn't have just had the Krishna Prasadam. He wouldn't have just had the Mahaprasad, the great mercy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, the reason why the prasadam that we honor by eating is called Mahaprasad is the reason why it is that great mercy. Of course, prasad means mercy and Maha means great. The reason why we can call it Mahaprasad is because the devotion and the benefit that one gets from offering prasadam, actually not anyone can offer prasad. There's a reason why we offer bhoga first to parampara and not directly to Krishna. Because actually only the pure devotees can offer something directly to Krishna. Otherwise all our desires that are there mixed in with the bhoga, they corrupt it. But if one gives it to the parampara, gives it to Srila Prabhupada and all of the other great acharyas, and says, please offer this to Krishna on my behalf, I've offered it imperfectly. If they do it like this, then there is then the pure devotee offers it, and then it becomes prasadam. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, not all of us, not everyone can get the benefit of the devotion of offering bhoga to Krishna, but everyone can honor the remnants. It is a great Mahaprasad because there is nothing which prevents anyone from taking this prasadam and from eating it. And therefore it is such a great mercy. Because by honoring this Mahaprasad, one becomes purified. There is also the pastime of a foolish, is it working? Yeah? Okay, of a foolish Brahmin. And this Brahmin, he was very much in the line of barely a Dvija, pretty much a Dvija Bandhu. He spent all his time doing worship for demigods the whole time and taking money constantly. His whole idea was, I will worship the demigods and then I'll make some money and I'll live my life like this. And so he was living out exactly the sort of Kali Yuga Brahminical life. Not very Brahminical in its essence. And as Brahmin, doing this his whole life, obviously we can infer that he wasn't really headed in the best of directions. The skyliner wouldn't necessarily be a spiritual one. But as he was doing this, living like this, he was going along, and one day there was some rice left on the ground. And being miserly, as one who is constantly absorbed in business affairs like that often tends to be, he thought, I'll take some of this rice and I'll just eat a few of the grains so I can skip a meal. I won't have to make it out of my own food reserves. And doing like that, he ate the rice. And he gave some to his son as well. And doing so, he also brought some back for his wife so that his whole family could be fed. And so his son, his wife, and himself ate this rice. And so then his life went along. That was done, and he kept on living his lifestyle as it was. And then, as his life was, coming to an end, it was time for him to leave. He was walking one day, and not living the most auspicious of lives, he didn't leave in the most auspicious way either. A tiger came and killed him, and ate him. And killing him, this Brahmin, he was dead. Yeah? And then afterwards, his wife, she went off, she sat on the funerary pyre, she sat on the flame and she followed him to his destination. But his destination was actually the spiritual realm. Because that rice that was left over was the remnants. One Vaishnava was traveling and he had carried some prasadam with him. And a few drops of the prasadam had accidentally fallen out and the Vaishnava had not noticed. And because of that, it was considered he was so purified, he obtained liberation. He obtained the destination. And his wife obtained it as well, and his son also obtained it. His wife followed him wherever he went by sitting on the funerary pyre. His son had eaten some as well, and not only that, not only did all three achieve liberation, but the tiger who ate him also became liberated, because the tiger had eaten the remnants of Mahaprasad in his body. So this is a story from the Pancharatra. So with this story, again, this is the glories of Prasadam. So Prasadam is very glorious. But Haridas Thakur, he received an even greater mercy. Because by eating the remnants, Prabhupada says, the Mahaprasad becomes Mahaprasad, when it is the remnants of the devotee. Because by waiting for the end, Haridas Thakur, he would be able to eat the remnants left over of Mahaprabhu and the devotees. He would be able to eat their prasadam, their remnants, their mercy. And by doing so, in his humility, again, it is through humility that so much in spiritual life is purchased. And through Haridas Thakur's humility then, he has purchased such a great thing. It is by this humility that he is practically having a greater result than had he just gone in. Because it is through the remnants of the Vaishnavas are even greater, in a sense. They are coming through this mercy. Jagat Guru Swami, he would say that his whole life he tried his best to always have prasadam served to him, not to take it himself. He would always then serve it in turn. It's not that he just wanted people to serve him. But he said it was one of the best meditations for him to remember, that his whole spiritual life is lived purely by the mercy of the devotees. If even his sustenance, as he is eating prasadam, is coming from the hands of the devotees, serving prasadam, it's a constant awareness that not only is my spiritual sustenance coming purely through the mercy of the Vaishnavas, but also my physical sustenance. All of the sustenance, all the life that I have comes purely through the mercy of the Vaishnavas. We say that Balaram is of course the source of the Guru Tattva. The Guru is the representative of Balaram. He is empowered by Balaram. The Balaram is the Adi Guru. And we know that of the three Shaktis that Radharani, that expand from Radharani, there's the Sandhini, the Samvit, and the Hladini. We know the existence potency is being held in charge of by Balaram. Balaram himself, he is the principle by which existence itself is had in Golok Vrindavan. The essence of spiritual existence is undergirded by the principles of Balaram, and is the same in spiritual life. Of course, we are not associating with Balaram, but we are associating with the person who is empowered by Balaram. And in the same way, the Vaishnavas and the Guru, and of course the Vaishnavas can also embody that Guru Tattva when they are acting in that role. Like that, they are providing the undergirding existence potency for the entire existence of one's spiritual life. All of it is held by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. And therefore, to have the Mahaprasad, which is purchased again through the humility of Haridas Thakur, is a very high thing. And by doing this, he is showing not only the value of humility, but also the value of the remnants of the pure devotees. So, like this is happening. So those two, they did not come and they did not take prasad. They left. And so again, it was Nityananda Prabhu and Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And they were all dwelling together. And so Mahaprabhu, he was very happy. He was in fact immensely happy with seeing again this long list of prasadam. Again, we know Advaita Acharya, he made this point of stressing the simplicity of the prasadam. One would think that Mahaprabhu, he would become upset seeing this, thinking, this isn't what I asked for. I wanted to eat something simple. But again, Mahaprabhu is embodying the correct attitude of how prasadam should be approached. It is not that he saw it and thought, this is not fit for me to eat. He saw it and thought, this is fit for Krishna to eat. His response was, this is amazing. Not because I don't think I can eat it. He didn't think, oh, this is terrible because this isn't something I can eat. His first thought was, this was amazing. This is such a wondrous offering for Krishna. His thought process was first, how can I please Krishna? And then in fact, there was no other second step. It was that first step and no other. Constantly thinking what is pleasing for Krishna. And that is why he responds, not upset that Advaita Acharya seems to have proposed a different idea, but instead he responds with happiness that yes, this is exactly how Krishna should be worshipped. This is exactly what should be given to him. And then Mahaprabhu says, I will personally take the lotus feet of anyone who can offer Krishna such nice food and place those lotus feet on my head birth after birth. Mahaprabhu is very, very pleased with this offering of prasadam. And so one may think that, well, obviously, I would like, not necessarily that I want Mahaprabhu to take my feet and place it on his head, but I would like to please Mahaprabhu to such a degree. And this should be, of course, our meditation. We are to please Krishna, and we are also to please Mahaprabhu, because they are one and the same. And some people may think, and they'll say, well, you know, I can't make one of these dishes that's listed here, let alone this long list that we did not delve into fully. There are so many various wonderful offerings that were being made, and none of these are within my capability. Maybe financially, maybe in terms of prowess, maybe in terms of all sorts of other things. But practically, this also doesn't make sense, because we know in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says what can be offered to him, it's not these opulent varieties of prasadam. It's a leaf or a flower or a fruit, something simple. So the way to, obviously, to reconcile and to understand this, I'm reminded of a pastime Dhanudhar Maharaj has. He was walking down the bazaar in Vrindavan, and he was reading through a publication that had been published by a Gauriya Vaishnav Brahmin, who in that area was very much known for being very much of the smarta, Brahminical sort of element. He was very, very strict on all these different various rules, almost excessively. He was a great Shastric scholar, but again, he was a great Shastric scholar and fell very much into constant absorption of the nitty-gritties. But still, Dhanudhar Maharaj was reading this publication because every once in a while he would quote some rather interesting Shastra and so on and so forth. So Dhanudhar Maharaj, he was reading this article, he says, and there was a little question and answer section. And one person said, if I cannot cook roti, if I cannot cook roti nicely, is it fine if I can cook pizza instead? Is it fine if I can offer a pizza? And so Dhanudhar Maharaj, he was almost giggling, thinking, I'm going to read a really nice response here. This person's really going to have it handed to them. And he was expecting some really intense, like, this is nonsense, this is, this isn't Vedic culture, get out, stop saying all these things. But he said what he saw was actually a very amazing application of our philosophy. And it was the most perfect answer he'd ever heard to that question. And what that scholar had written was, he said, if you struggle to cook that roti and therefore are not able to do it lovingly, if you struggle to cook that roti and therefore are not able to put your heart and devotion into it, because all that arises is frustration, and what you are left with is something that you just feel you cannot lovingly offer to Krishna, but you can do that while making a pizza, he said, then make the pizza. Krishna eats the devotion. He doesn't actually care too much for the food. It is made delectable, it is made delicious by the devotion that is offered. You shouldn't think necessarily that Krishna is looking for that sense gratification. It's not that Krishna is looking for a nice opulent meal because he doesn't have any. What Krishna wants, the reason why we should make opulent offerings, is because they are more and more an act of giving. It's not then that opulence is unnecessary or that opulent prasadam is bad. Because opulent prasadam merely reflects, this is the amount that I can give. To make a simple pizza for somebody who can make very sweet varieties of roti and sabji and all, that would not be proper. But the actual thing that Krishna wants is that giving and devotion, that surrender, that service. So if for one's abilities to cook, all that one can make is a pizza, then Krishna is just as much pleased if one can give themselves fully in the making of that pizza than if one can give themselves fully in making all of these varieties of prasadam that Advaita Acharya had made. Of course, it is, and then of course if one though is capable of making all these varieties of prasadam and then thinks, oh, but Krishna is satisfied only by a pizza, then the opposite effect is had. Then there is no point to that. Because functionally, sometimes people I know they can get into the trap with prasadam, with offering bhoga. It's seen as a ritual. It's actually seen as a means by which I can spiritualize my sense gratification. People will cook the whole time thinking, I can't wait to eat this. People will prepare the whole time thinking, I can't wait to eat this. They'll put the plate on an altar, they'll ring a bell, they'll say a few mantras while they're thinking about eating it, and then they'll clap 3 times, and then they'll eat it. But that's not the essence of what prasadam is. Prasadam isn't that. Prasadam is that offering of devotion. Today, of course, is Ekadashi. So again, we're thinking a lot about prasadam even before this section of CC. But there's a thing to be said. The fasting on Ekadashi is, again, it's food related on the opposite end of the spectrum. One is talking about honoring food, and the other one, the fasting, is talking about avoiding the honoring of prasadam. The fasting is often referred to as an upavas. That is the word that's used. And the word upavas is interesting because it's composed of 2 Sanskrit terms, upa and vas. Upa, we know from the Upanishads. Upa has a connotation of come near. Come near, because the Upanishads, they're the Vedanta, they were spoken by the great Vedic teachers. Come near and I will speak to you the conclusions of the Vedas. So upa means to come near, and vas, we know, dhamvasi. It means to dwell. So it means to come near and to dwell. But to come near and dwell to who? It means to come near and dwell to the Supreme Lord. If one is fasting or if one is honoring prasadam, actually the very act should be essentially the same. Both are acts in which a person is drawing closer to the Supreme Lord. If one is honoring prasadam or if one is fasting. If one is fasting and then not engaging in drawing nearer to the Lord, in chanting extra rounds, in reading Shastra and hearing classes, then what is the point of their fast? They've not fulfilled the essence of what the upavas, of what the fasting is. Again, if one has offered prasadam and has done it entirely thinking about how they can't wait to eat it, then what have they offered? It is not prasadam, it has not been offered properly. In both ways. But if they're both done correctly, they're both doing the exact same thing. It is the action of coming closer to the Lord by sanctifying in some way the process of eating. If it is abandoning food in order to be able to focus upon one's spiritual life, or if it is sanctifying food, again, to focus on one's spiritual life. So either way, the point of prasadam and the point of eating and the point of everything else, of course, is that it is not mechanical, and it is not that merely by following through on some rituals, by following through some steps, by tick, 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 at the end there's Krishna praying, or there's spiritual advancement. It's not a magic trick. It's not that one can. It's not that Krishna is like a. What's the word? Like a computer, where you can type in a few of these little buttons, and then boom. Now Krishna must give to me Krishna prem. Now Krishna must give to me devotion. It's not like these things. The essence must be there, and that essence is the same in all things. So, because of this, when that essence is there of serving bhoga, again, it won't ever fully be pure until one is a pure devotee. But if it is still with a correct amount of sincerity offered, then still it is fulfilling this, and that is why it may be an issue. People might say, how can I please Mahaprabhu if I'm not offering so many things like this? But again, Mahaprabhu wasn't even necessarily pleased by seeing the great varieties of prasadam. He was pleased by seeing the amount of devotion and care and effort that went into their preparation. So then we continue. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the room, he saw 3 divisions of food, and he knew that all of these were meant for Krishna. However, he did not understand the intentions of Advaita Acharya, which is what we were discussing, that Advaita Acharya, who was planning to have some of it to be honored by Krishna, and then others to be eaten by Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. And then so Mahaprabhu says, let us sit down in these 3 places, and we shall take prasadam. However, Advaita Acharya said, I shall distribute the prasadam. And so, because Mahaprabhu was reflecting that he thought these were all meant for distributing out, therefore he asked for 2 other banana leaves and said, let us have a very little quantity of vegetable and rice. And again, Advaita Acharya, he said, stop. Please, let me do this, because he wanted to fulfill his desire. And then Mahaprabhu said, it is not proper for a sannyasi to eat such variety of foods. If he does, how can he control his senses? Again, we're seeing here, now we're seeing the point of why Advaita Acharya initially said, the prasadam will be simple, don't worry. And it turned out to not be so. And then Advaitacharya, he says, come on, I'm Mahavishnu, you're Krishna. I know what's going on here. Stop tricking around like this is a show for everyone else, but give up your concealment. I know what you are. I know the confidential meaning of your accepting the sannyas order. And then he said, and then the Lord said, I cannot eat so much food. And then they kept on going like this for a while, and going on like this. At one point, Advaitacharya, he said, well, actually, you are Jagannath. Again, we're cutting the pretense. We both know what's going on here. He said, you are Jagannath, and every day Jagannath is eating so much. You are telling me you're not capable of digesting such little? And of course, Nityananda Prabhu, at this time, he's starting to say, Mahaprabhu is saying, this is too much. How can I eat all of this? And Nityananda Prabhu is saying, this is too little. This is barely an appetizer for me. Again, this is about to segue into the fight, but the transcendental fight, which is actually complete glorification. But, so, doing like this, Advaitacharya, he says, you're Jagannath. You're eating so many varieties of offerings. Even though there's a number given, I think it's 46 offerings that are traditionally said to be given every day to Jagannath. Actually, practically speaking, there's over 100 done every day because the varieties get moved around. Because of local traditions, local developments. Jagannath, he's being offered a lot of bhoga. There's an example of one of the local pastimes is there was a Vaishnavi. Her name's departed my head. And she would every day, she would be thinking about Jagannath, and she'd be thinking about all the nice, sweet, luscious, opulent food that Jagannath is eating every single day. And she would think, my dear Jagannath, he's eating all these things, but he's like my child. She was very much embodying that Vatsalya ras. She said, he's like my child, if he's eating all this sweet food all the time, soon he will get some indigestion. He will have some stomach pains. This food is so nice and opulent, but what will happen? He will have so much pain if he keeps on eating like this non-stop. So what she thought, I have to stop this somehow. And she thinks, I will cook some simple sag. So she makes some very simple, very bitter sag sabji. Every day she makes. And she would hide it under her sari as she would enter into Jagannath Puri, into the temple. She would go inside and she would hide it under her sari so the guards would not see, because the guards do not allow people to bring bhoga from outside. So hiding like this, she would sneak in and then she would present it and it would disappear from her hands. Jagannath would eat it. And she would do like this, non-stop. And like that, before she was in anxiety, every night she thought, okay, tonight's the night. Jagannath, he's not going to be able to sleep today. His stomach pains are going to be so severe. Tonight's the night, I don't know what to do. But finally, by doing this, day in, day out, she did it constantly for quite a long time. And her worry was gone. She thought, with this sag, he'll be fine. So she kept on doing like this, day in, day out. Until one day, she didn't conceal it so well. Maybe she got a little confident in her ability to hide it. And hidden underneath, it was very obvious she was carrying something. And so one of the guards, he stopped her and he said, Mataji, what are you doing? What's that you have? And she said, oh, this is some sag. And he said, oh, we don't allow sag offerings for the Lord here. We don't allow any outside offerings. And she said, oh, don't worry, it's just for my son. And the guard said, even if it's for your son or not for your son, the rules are the rules. I'm not allowed to let you bring it in. So he confiscated it away, and she was forced to go without offering it. And so she was very upset and very worried. And the whole time she was thinking, what's going to happen to Jagannath? What's going to happen to Jagannath? And that night, when she went to sleep, these two boys, one very black and one very white, sure we can read in between the lines, they appeared in her dream. And appearing to her, they said, we're having terrible sleep. We can't sleep tonight. Our indigestion is so terrible. We're eating all of these nice sweets, but we just can't sleep. It's terrible. We are trying to sleep and the pains, they're unbearable. And then saying like this, she becomes completely distraught and she starts crying and crying and crying. And she says, I tried to get you some sag so this wouldn't happen. I cooked it for you, but then the guard, he took it away. I wanted you to not have stomach pains. I wanted you to be fine. But unfortunately, the guard took it away, so now you're suffering from this. And seeing the tears, obviously Krishna and Balaram, they became very upset. And so the dream ended. And that same night, the king of Puri and the head Brahmin, They were told. They came in the dreams, Krishna and Balaram, and they said, hey, what are you doing? We're getting stomach aches without this Vaishnavi's sag that she is bringing in. We're getting so much pain. Why are you not letting her make this offering? And after this dream, then the king, he made it a rule that actually she is not only allowed in, she was given a very opulent position. He went and he found her and he said, you have a very opulent position in this temple. You can have a special throne and everything. He gave her all these lavish things. And she was just confused because she was a simple devotee again with that humility. She thought, I don't want any of these. I just want to be able to offer the sag. Like, why are you giving me all these other things? And she left her body only maybe a few years after that happened anyways. But because of that, the tradition began, and it still continues to today, that there is sag offered. It is one of the preparations that's done daily. And there's various other traditions that have developed because of the engagements of Jagannath and his devotees. And that's why, it's more than the standard number that's given in Shastra. Practically, there's hundreds of things being offered to Jagannath. And So like this, Advaita Acharya, he was saying, so you're Jagannath, you're eating all sorts of preparations. Surely you can do this. And then, doing like that, they began to eat prasad. And then Nityananda Prabhu, as I said before, he was starting to get his ideas, and this is getting into the discourse between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. He was having this idea that, my brother, he's complaining that this is too much. Well, I'm having quite the opposite problem. He was saying, I was also fasting for 3 days. I know even after fasting for 1 day, at the end of, or even not even 1 day, at the end of Janmashtami, you'll never see so many devotees so eager to honor prasadam. So Nityananda Prabhu, he's saying, I've been fasting for 3 whole days. This is not enough for me. This is barely anything. And so like that, he was complaining. And he said, I've been invited to eat by Advaita Acharya, but such a small quantity, not even half my stomach will be filled. Advaita Acharya has made this big show inviting me for prasadam, and now he's offering me so little. What is going on here? And then Advaita Acharya, and this continues, you'll constantly find these transcendental arguments between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. Advaita Acharya says, you're a mendicant traveling on pilgrimage. Sometimes you eat fruits and roots, sometimes you simply go fasting. I'm a poor Brahmin, and you have come to my home. Please be satisfied with whatever little food you have received. It's very humble and sweet, until he says, and give up your greedy mentality. And then the rasa starts kicking in. And then Nityananda Prabhu, he says, whatever I may be, you have invited me. Therefore, you must supply as much as I want to eat. We know, of course, the value of hospitality in Vedic culture. Prabhupada writes in that purport in first canto, when Maharaj Parikshit, when he becomes very disturbed, it's said that the 3 elements that were missing from the sage's hospitality were polite words, a drink of water, and a seat to sit on. And because those 3 were missing, even though it wasn't justified to respond to that like a Brahmin, there was actually a violation in code. So regulated is the etiquette in Vedic times. And so we find here that Nityananda Prabhu, he is evoking this shame. So strong is the shame in implying somebody is not being hospitable. And so after hearing that, they continued. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur just clarify that they're just joking, they're just having fun. It's not that they're actually having a go at each other. And then Advaita Acharya, he says very interestingly, that you are a reject Paramahamsa and have accepted the renounced order of life just to fill up your belly. I can understand that your business is to give trouble to the Brahmins. And it seems a little hard to see how these things can be indirect glorifications. But they are, because his essential point is, by saying that he's giving trouble to the Brahmins, he's actually saying that, yes, you have, but you've done so by transcending the whole notion of Varnashram, of the Brahminical orders. Even though directly he's saying you're just nonsense causing problem in Varnashram, he's actually saying, no, this is your elevated position, that you are able to do these things, that you are able to disrupt the material structuring of society, because you are actually a true Paramahamsa. Of course, we know this title, Paramahamsa, is thrown around a lot. and very incorrectly for the majority of names you'll hear that follow the Paramahamsa title that's given out. But a genuine Paramahamsa would be Nityananda Prabhu. He is an avadhut. And so therefore, by saying that he is the word reject he uses is prashta avadhuta. By saying he is an avadhut, he is pointing out this nature of him. That actually all of these affairs that you're doing, all of these issues you're having with the Brahmins, all of these issues that you're having with the rules and regulations, all of these things come from your spiritual platform. So this is a glorification hidden in the words of an insult. And then Advaita Acharya, he says, you can eat 10 to 20 manas of rice. I'm a poor Brahmin. How shall I get so much rice? And a mana is about 4 kilograms. So if you needed evidence that Nityananda Prabhu appeared in the Bengal area, you'll know that this is somewhere around 40 to 80 kilograms of rice, which is very, not a small amount. So, and then he says, whatever you have, though it be a palmful of rice, please eat it and get up. Don't show your madness and strew the remnants of food here and there. So, in this way, Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they ate, and they spoke jokingly in banter with Advaita Acharya. Then, as this happened, at one point, Nityananda Prabhu, he throws the rice. He says, my belly is not yet filled up. Take away your food. I have not taken the least of it. And doing that, he threw a handful of rice against Advaita Acharya. And normally this would be not exactly on, like if anyone was to do that in the Prasadam hall, well, it wouldn't be tolerated very nicely. But this is again to be understood transcendentally. This is the mercy that is being given. And Advaita Acharya, he says, I've invited you and I've received the results. You have no fixed caste or dynasty. By nature you are a madman. To make me a madman like yourself, you have thrown the remnants of your food at me. You did not even fear the fact that I am a Brahmin. And there again is that point being I'm over time, is being reiterated. That point essentially was that Advaita Acharya was saying, I'm a Brahmin under these apparent varnashram considerations that you have transcended. And you are a madman, but this isn't a madness that is to be taken as an insult in the same way that we hear the word madman. You're an avadhut. You are transcendental to the material conceptions and understandings of behavior. And because of that, you have made me like you. It sounds like an insult that you've lowered me to your level, but actually what Advaita Acharya means is you have raised me to your level. It was a word of gratitude to say, by doing this, you have raised me to that transcendental platform. Even though I'm a Brahmin, you have given me this mercy, and you have pulled me up to the platform of the avadhut, of transcendental madness. And with that, we'll continue the discussion on Thursday. I went over time, but yep. With that, we'll continue talking about how they honored Prasad and then the Kirtan, and then we can get into some of the glories of Jagannath Puri when Sachi Mata arrives. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur ki jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki.
He says, your name is Advaita, because you're a Mayavadi. Do you listen to that?
Okay, yeah.
I'll do this. Yes.
No, you finished off talking about not science process.
Like counting stuff, different parts,
Actually, there's more details there.
yeah.
Almost.